is this showing? This is showing the balancing game by US. Yeah. So now, as a recap of the entire lecture and what you have to understand from this lecture two main things: what steps have been taken by USA to build its hegemony, what advantages US has over other countries that US could build its hegemony, and the comparison between what USA is doing and what China is doing. Fine. So this is like how the world looks at. If we look USA as the center of the world, so on one side it is protected by the Atlantic Ocean, on the other side it is protected by the Pacific Ocean. No country from South America can ever dominate. First you have to dominate this particular region, then you can dominate. Neither Mexico nor Canada has that particular position. So every country has an image of its own. So US image is called as the land of manifest destiny. Though manifest destiny, this particular statement, it gives, or it is a justification. This statement is actually the justification of expansion of US boundaries. So actually initial US was on the east coast, and then these 13 states were expanded till the west coast. Fine. So for that, this land of the manifest destiny phrase has come into existence, but this can further be extended from the west coast to Pacific Ocean and then till Asia. So we also use it as an idiom, land of manifest destiny, to show that USA has power, or USA is destined to rule the Pacific region. Right? Now this is how this manifest destiny is presented, and this term manifest destiny was first used by John Sullivan, and he said that, what does it mean? He was a journalist who used this particular term. He said that manifest destiny means US is divinely ordained to expand its borders to the Pacific Oceans and beyond. So this is the portrait of John Sullivan. At times, US leaders, they also describe to show that how exclusive, how special, how blessed, how different USA is. So it is like a US brand building or US image building, and they describe USA as a shining city upon a hill, means much more blessed and much better than any other country in the world. So they want that USA is a country where world looks upon. So if any problem arises, everybody looks at US. We always question why US is not taking any action. Means it is called as a shining city upon the hill. This phrase has its origin in in the view of, or you can say in the religion, like the city upon hill is a phrase derived from the teachings of salt and light in Jesus Christ, Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus Christ has said you are the salt of the earth. So it's like, because there is US, so there is a earth. Fine. So it is like the same. Fine. So this is Sermon on the earth and city on the hill, where Jesus says that everybody is watching your actions because you are special. So it is used in USA by the politicians. For example, John F. Kennedy has used it to refer America as a beacon of hope for the world. Right now, US is a beacon of hope, at least for India. Fine. So what are the imperatives of US foreign policy? As we have seen, the imperatives is to establish its hegemony, the core objective, prosperity and security of the homeland, and how to achieve it through US hegemony. So US should be the big fish, having a capacity to eat all the small fishes. Now, the meaning of hegemony. If you go by the realist view, they believe that you get hegemonic status by your material power, which means by the amount of the military power you have, by the amount of economic power you have. And the Gramscian view, it says that a country achieves hegemony by its cultural power. So one of the definitions of the hegemony or a hegemon state is given by one of the most renowned scholar of international politics, Mearsheimer, who says that hegemon is a state that is so powerful that it is dominant over all other states in the system. Fine. Robert Gilpin, for the time being you can leave it, but he says that hegemon is that country which is able to determine the rules of the world system, especially international economy. Fine. So Charles Kindleberger, I have referred it, but later on I will tell almost similar ideas. So views on US hegemony. So some scholars believe US should seek global hegemony. For example, Robert Gilpin says, but Mearsheimer says that global hegemony is quite impractical, so US should also only seek regional hegemony. Fine. And the reason is global hegemony is virtually impossible because projecting massive forces across oceans is too difficult. And second, states can attain nuclear monopoly to gain hegemony, but it is also unlikely, as a rival state will also go at length to develop that. So if not conventional forces, nuclear forces can give you hegemony, but it is unlikely because others will also go for it. So these are some policies, its significance, etc. we will discuss later. Fine. Now the definition of geopolitics is how countries and other groups compete over geographical entity. Fine. Alfred P. Mahan, he said that it is the influence of sea power upon history, his famous classic book, and where he talks about the influence of sea power upon the history, and where he talks about the role of sea power in national security. So right now what is happening, Prime Minister Modi, while addressing the summit, while addressing UN Security Council as a presidency, he has talked about one of the priority, that is maritime security. So if you want to gain the major power status, you have to focus on maritime security. So the role of sea power in national security, in peacetime, its commercial use and its control during the war. So in both sense, we have to control the seas, and one who controls the ocean will control the world. Indian Ocean is a key to the 7 seas. Whosoever will control Indian Ocean will dominate Asia. The destiny of the world will be decided on the waters of Indian Ocean. And he said that British control of sea and decline of naval and strength of European states paved the way for hegemony of US. So based on these factors, you have to have these 6 powers, these 6 elements to become a sea power, but it is not so important, so you can leave it. Fine. So similarly, there is a book on Chinese strategy which is also saying that China also has huge potential to become a sea power. Now, you should always be aware of Mackinder. Fine. This is called as Heartland Theory, and this is the title of his book, The Geographical Pivot of the History. And Mackinder says that political history is a continuous struggle between the land power and sea power. So China can be considered as a land power, and US is a sea power, and his view is whosoever will rule the heartland commands the world island, and whosoever rules the world island commands the world. So this is the heartland, somebody like, and Central Asia is further at the core of this heartland. Another important scholar whose ideas have influenced US foreign policy is Nicholas Spikeman, and he's also known as godfather of containment, and he has given the rimland theory. So if we see, this is heartland, which is more landlocked, and the periphery of heartland is you can say it's called as rimland, means countries which have land frontiers also and which have sea frontiers also. So you can call it as an amphibious state. So China is also an amphibious state, India is also an amphibious state. Fine. So Nicholas Spikeman, his focus was, or he believed that the world will be under the control of the rimland countries. Rimland countries have a land advantage as well as sea advantage. The coastal areas or littorals of Eurasia are key to control the world island. China will be a continental power of huge dimensions. Fine. In 18th-19th century, he said that China will be a continental power of huge dimensions in control of large section of littorals of the group of marginal seas, which he calls Asian Mediterraneans. Fine. So just which countries are called as Asian Mediterraneans? The marginal seas. China will be controlling Sea of Japan, East China Sea, South China Sea, and is trying to establish its major influence on the major seas, Indian Oceans and the Pacific Ocean. Fine. And he had predicted that a modern, vitalized, militarized China is going to be a threat not only to Japan but to Western powers in Asiatic Mediterranean. US must recognize once and for all. These people never supported that USA should help China to rise. So US must recognize once and for all that the power contestations in Asia is of everlasting concerns to US both in war and peace. So US cannot stay away from Asia Pacific. Now geopolitics of USA is called as inevitable empire because US has all the credentials to become the major power. It is also called as indispensable nation by its officials. So this is a statement of one of the very famous American scholar, Mark Twain. Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Means time and again we keep on talking about the decline of US hegemony, but each time USA re-emerges, USA bounces back because the resilience of its all elements of power. So means US hegemony is not going to decline so easily until and unless the China challenge may be tough, but US powers are very, you can say, are always very resilient. Fine. So now again, and what is the reason for its resilience? I told Samuel P. Huntington, who says that Americans are important because of not what they are, but because where they are. And sources of American power, I told you the location, its impressive geography, Great Mississippi Basin with intracoastal waterways, lengthiest than the rest of the world, which gives its efficiency in terms of transportation. So US has capital, food, surplus technology, soft power, physical insulation in excess of any other country in the world. And again, these 50 American states, they consider themselves as one nation, which Europe, even if coming together, will never achieve this status. So there are 50 American states which add up to form a nation in a way that 27 sovereign states of Europe can never achieve. So US foreign policy up till the First World War, isolationism, single power, which was not only functional but thriving during the wars, consolidated its newfound power by creating the global architecture to entrench its position. Naval domination, formation of NATO, placed all of the world's surviving naval assets under the control of USA. NATO led US to control North Atlantic and Mediterranean, the two bodies required for resurgence for any European power. Fine, so no scope for resurgence of any European power. So NATO is actually not for the security of Europe. NATO is actually for the hegemony of USA. Fine. So you can see the NATO bases. Fine. So two important seas for any European power to come and attack. It's all surrounded by the US naval forces. Similarly, in the Mediterranean region, again, it is all surrounded by its US Navy. You will find everywhere, means perfect containment of all the regional rivals. So China's containment you can see, Russia's containment you can see throughout. Fine. And then in East, they have a hub and spoke system, which I told you. So Philippines is their ally, Japan is their ally, Korea is their ally, Taiwan is their ally. Fine. So I have already told you because these countries have problems with each other, so US went for the bilateral system. Fine. And later on when I will discuss Indo-Pacific, I will tell that why ASEAN states are not very comfortable with Quad or AUKUS, because ASEAN states have their own ASEAN Regional Forum and East Asia Summit, and initially they have not invited US. US is not the original member. Fine. So US felt that any such attempts are like building an architecture away from USA. The politics of it I will discuss later. Fine. So now US has built Quad. We will discuss it later in detail. US has built AUKUS as a main security architecture. Again, in this region, US has built the Bretton Woods institutions. You take loan from IMF, again investment for this reconstruction and development. This is for long-term purposes. Here you take loan to address your balance of payment. So US took advantage of European affairs. US made European states had no option. US positioned US dollar. How? Because all French or Germans, they have to purchase US goods. So US will be taking what? Either dollar or gold. Fine. So gold will go to USA, or you can exchange gold for dollar. So European states wanted access to American markets and US Navy for the safety. Asian powers were also included in Bretton Woods, and WTO made the system global. There is also one term you should know, Bretton Woods system. Bretton Woods system is different from Bretton Woods institutions. So IMF and World Bank, they are Bretton Woods institution. Bretton Woods system is a currency system, and this system has established the hegemony of US dollar. Fine. So at the time of the Second World War, Either you could have purchased goods in gold or in dollar, fine, or you can get the dollar by giving or keeping your gold in the American state or American Reserve Bank or American Central Bank, fine. So dollar became the standard to value other currencies, fine. So US dollar, this is called the system. So whether it is a British pound or a German or a French mark, their value is to be determined either like into the gold and dollar. So dollar's currency was pegged at the value of gold. It was tied to gold, fine. So this has made what? It has made dollar high on demand. So dollar's price has increased. But by this time, between this to this time, gradually European nations also were able to set their house in order. Japan had also risen, fine, and they started challenging because they started producing the cheaper goods. So US export started declining, fine, to set the things because dollar was overvalued by this time. Again, at the time of Nixon, there is one important historical event known as Nixon shock, where he held that no more pegging of the value of dollar with the gold, and dollar will become the free floating currency, fine. So this is how there will be a breakdown of this particular system. We will come to this later on when we will do IMF, but keep these things in mind. So history of the hegemony of dollar. So dollar is the only reserve currency after the end of, not Cold War, you just write here, after the end of Second World War. Bretton Woods system made all currency pegged to US dollar, which in turn pegged to the price of gold. Bretton Woods institutions have institutionalized the hegemony of dollar, and dollar came to dominate global finance, trade and business. So all foreign currency reserves were held in dollar. This has overpriced the dollar and it has impacted exports of US. US did not have enough gold at the time to honor the convertibility. So US ended this Bretton Woods system, which American history is called as Nixon shock. It ended the direct convertibility of US dollar into gold. It introduced floating exchange rate. By 90s, things started changing and US started becoming the net debtor because US started getting challenge from Europe. It started getting challenge from China, Japan and other countries, fine. So proliferation of global value chains, Chinese integration has given, integration of China with the global economy has given a big problem for USA, and US started. So present status of dollar, so still US dollar share as a reserve currency is 60%, euro share is 22%, Chinese, the demand for Chinese currencies is still very, very less. So still the credentials of US hegemony are as strong as it used to be, and it's not very difficult for US to bounce back. Why dollar is resilient? Point number one, the size of US economy. China will become bigger economy than US, but it will never have such a heft. China will never be a most attractive place for investment because of Chinese political system and because of Chinese ideology. Your investment is not secure there, fine. So obviously Chinese political system will stop giving, or it will prevent the heft which US has, fine. So while it is easy to transact business and invest easily with confidence in US, not in China, and China does not have a transparent liquidity market, fine. So we have to see whether China can really put a challenge or whether the path for establishing hegemony for China is going to be easy, fine. And US alliance system also help dollars, and allies also wish to support US-led order. US alliance has alliance with advanced countries. All petroleum trade is only in dollar. And in 2003, USA had attacked Iraq, fine. And what was the reason? The reason was there was information that European countries and Saddam Hussein have entered into a negotiation where he was willing to sell oil in exchange of euro. So European Union was growing up, and euro had started giving a big challenge to US dollar. So what USA did? US tried to punish Saddam Hussein, and 2003 war has later on led to the complete, you can say, halt of European Union, fine. So why, there was a war against Iraq in 2003, fine, where USA has attacked Saddam Hussein on the pretext that Saddam Hussein is building the weapons of mass destruction, and US also knew, and later on all investigations proved he had none, fine. But why? Because Saddam Hussein and European countries, they have entered into a deal where petroleum trade will be into euro. Now by this time, euro's value became very strong and euro was giving a big challenge. European Union became the most preferred investment destination, fine. So what US did? US attacked Iraq, fine. So if Iraq will be attacked, obviously instability will come in Iraq, fine. So if instability will come in Iraq, it will keep on creating problems in the Middle East, and this will create the refugee crisis. This refugee crisis will bring ultimately the end of Europe. This is what USA wanted, fine. So we will do these things later on also in the parts. So if China will start challenging the hegemony of US dollar, US is going to take it very seriously. Now, if you see, USA has a hard power, most powerful military, highest military budget, $700 billion. China is the second one, but still China's military budget runs in around $200 billion, and US budget is around $700 billion. USA has 100 military bases, first space force in the world. The size of economy is highly developed, free market economy, Fine. So this is just giving the size. USA also, if you talk about USA, soft power, democracy is an advantage, demography, science, technology, and market economy. And one of the grand design of US foreign policy is offshore balancing, which means prevent the provincial challengers, especially Russia and China. So the threats to US hegemony: Russia, China, fine, Iran, Turkey, non-state actors, Germany, North Korea, and as we will move to different topics, we will be saying. So basically, whether US hegemony will decline or not, it is normally said that US is an inevitable empire, means US hegemony is everybody's destiny, and maybe China will automatically be contained. And Bismarck, the Chancellor of Germany, often known for his comments and statement, held that it is said that God takes special care of drunks, children, and USA. So hopefully, the God is going to help USA, and the saying of the decline of US hegemony will prove quite premature. So now, in your syllabus, the first topic is Cold War. Fine. So we will try to understand what is Cold War